ultimately has one main character to the point where she's actually alone for a good portion of the first book. And in These Broken Stars, there are two characters, dual point of view, and you see the story equally from both of their points of view. And I don't think it's that one is better than the other. I think that different stories require different structures. With Skylark, she needs to be alone because that's when she discovers her strength. With These Broken Stars, there's the two characters experience just absolutely fundamental misunderstandings about each other. They both think the other person is vastly different than how they actually are. And if we only had one POV, then we would only get one person's side of the story. So in a dual POV, you can see the same events from different perspectives. But it really, in my opinion, is not one is better than the other. It's really, what the story demands.
Yep, that. It's just one. I mean, whichever way works better for the story.
I will say that for me, writing with multiple main characters is harder than with one. For with Origin, there's just Pia, and all I have to worry about is her eyes, and her character for the most part is the main perspective we see through. And in Vitro, I have three point of views that I go into. Sophie and the boy who flies in the airplane to Skin Island with her. His name is Jim. He's her childhood friend, and Lux, who is the twin, the Vitro twin that Sophie discovers on the island. And because I have these three characters on a very small island interacting with each other, it was kind of confusing for me. And I had all these really complicated timelines and post-it notes, and I can't remember who knows what, and who went where, and who talked to who, and what's going on. It's nighttime on this side of the island, it's daytime on this side of the island, I don't know what's going on. So it was a lot harder for me. And I'm not an organized person by nature, so it took a lot for me to sit down and really organize those point of views so that it didn't get confusing for the reader, and hopefully that worked.
I had the exact opposite experience with you, because the thing I'm working on now has 4 points of view, and I loved it, because whenever I just got bored with one, I would just switch to someone else. Like, well, you're not doing anything fun. Let's see how this guy goes. So much easier.
I didn't realize that Time After Time was going to be from Bennett's point of view when I first wrote Time Between Us. But I got to the end of this book, and we knew we were going to write a sequel to it, but I thought I would just continue the story from Anna's point of view. But it was so nice to write the second book from a different perspective, and I was terrified to write from a boy point of view, because it may surprise you to know that I've never been a 16-year-old boy before. I have been a 16-year-old girl, but I've never been, nor have I been a time traveler. So, yeah, I was terrified to write it from his POV, and I sent 3 chapters to my editor, and she's like, yeah, you can totally do this. I'm like, I can? Okay, well then let's do this. But I loved it because I felt like I knew him so well in writing Time Between Us, but I only saw him from Anna's point of view, or you only saw him as a reader from Anna's point of view. But I feel like I knew him so much better than anybody else did, so I loved being able to show a totally different world and show the challenges that he goes through with this gift of his from his own perspective.
Well, so this brings up a great point, because all of you have you've written from a boy's point of view too, right? All of you have, and I never have, because I am terrified.
I haven't. Amy wrote harder.
Oh, okay, well.
I still only ever wrote one.
I've only written one point POV, and there was girls, because I am quite terrified, and I just worry about some boy picking up my book and going, sorry, try again. But I would really like to try a book with dual point of view. Can you guys talk on that?
The thing that really struck out for me when I was trying to write Elder's point of view was there's a scene where he sees Amy for the first time. And before that, I was able to kind of universal feelings of fear and all that jazz. I got that covered. But when he sees the girl for the first time, she's cryogenically frozen in a block of ice, and she's naked. And the original scene of that, I had pages of description where he talks about the beautiful swirls of her hair and the graceful lines of her blah, blah, blah. And I showed it to my husband, and I'm like, so is this how a boy would think? And my husband just kind of looks at me and he's like, she's naked, right? I was like, yeah, she's totally naked. He was like, I would just be thinking about boobs. I just cut all of it and put in some boobs, and we were good.
Oh, lesson learned. Cut it all, put in boobs.
Yeah.
The other lesson learned is that husbands are very important, or having a male in your life who can say things like, Yeah, no guy would ever say that.
When in doubt, more boobs.
More boobs. So,
Jess, what was your experience writing Jim? Boobs?
No.
You
No.
guys are a lot more classy than mine.
There's so much class. There's also no nakedness, so that you know,
Yes.
kind of kill things. dot. Actually, I really love writing from a boy's point of view. I don't know why. I grew up reading a lot of boy-driven books. I hated Nancy Drew, but I loved the Hardy Boys. I loved like Hatchet by Gary Paulson and My Side of the Mountain by Jean Craighead George. And I feel like a lot of the sci-fi and fantasy when I was growing up was about boys. And so it became like a natural sort of secondary voice. I could just kind of channel what I'd read and into that boy mode. But still, I always run it by my husband. And I often get things wrong, which is great because that helps me. I remember I went to New Zealand this past December and on a tour group, and one of the people in my tour group was this 19-year-old German kid. And he started reading Vitro while we were on the bus, and he read the line about, I actually read it aloud tonight, where Jim says she was pretty and she was in trouble, and that was a powerful combination to get his help. And he read that out loud, and he's like, yes, that's so right! He's like, that's totally what I would have done. And I was like, yes! Even if the whole rest of the book, you know, if it's off, I got that line. I got that one. Small victory. It's a small victory.